Prenons les États-Unis. Les États-Unis. Ça, c'est le mercredi, toujours le mercredi 24 janvier. Mercredi 24 janvier 2024. Le Seigneur m'a montré sur des écrans des événements successifs aux États-Unis qui doivent arriver rapidement. C'est souligné rapidement est souligné ici. Des inondations massives dans les grandes villes, y compris Washington. Des voitures, des maisons totalement noyées à travers son territoire. Des calamités, on dirait des champs de bataille, des incendies multiples. Vous êtes aux États-Unis, une catastrophe. En réalité, il y a les anges, les styles d'anges qui sont ici au Cameroun se trouvent là-bas. Parce qu'il y a le réveil qui se prépare aussi là-bas. Mais j'ai aussi vu des vagues du Saint-Esprit sur le pays partout. Le ciel s'est ouvert et le Dieu du ciel s'est souvenu des États-Unis. Un grand réveil arrive pour purifier le pays avant la grande crise économique dont ils vont faire face. Les anges de son pays, les anges de ces pays sont prêts. C'est à ce moment-ci, dit le Seigneur. Donc, prions ardemment pour ce grand pays, car Dieu veut encore l'élever et le faire défier le pays du dragon. Vous connaissez le pays du dragon rouge. Et affronter l'ours polaire qui veut étendre ses regards vers le plus beau des pays. Priez qu'il n'y ait pas de traître de l'alliance à la Maison Blanche qui rompt l'alliance avec Israël. S'ils rompent l'alliance avec mon peuple, je romprai mon alliance avec eux, dit le Seigneur. Donc voilà le message pour les États-Unis. Donc en fin de compte, il y a plusieurs messages ici. Catastrophe, le bon message, la visitation du Saint-Esprit, l'alliance pour polariser les États-Unis afin de lutter contre le pays du dragon rouge et l'ours polaire, ainsi que la tentative de rompre l'alliance avec Israël, parce que c'est le changement totalement pour le monde là-bas.
Florida is facing a newly upgraded weather threat. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is now warning of a significant flash flooding threat, the second highest risk level. This after yesterday's flash floods turned deadly. ABC's Victor Kendo has the latest.
Millions under a flood watch in South Florida as relentless extreme rain and life-threatening flooding soaks the area.
My neighbor across the street has lived here 30 years, and she said this has never happened.
Authorities say 2 people were killed in Collier County after a driver lost control and caused a multi-vehicle crash. The already highly saturated ground easily overwhelmed.
We were scared. We ended up staying in the living room because we didn't feel safe in the bedrooms if the water was coming in from all sides.
Emergency crews say they're doing all they can to keep up.
We performed 5 rescues and rescued about 7 or 8 people utilizing our boats.
Even using special vehicles like this one to deliver goods to stuck residents. In Hollandale Beach, up to 20 inches of rain falling in less than 48 hours. Towing companies working overtime.
What time did you start today?
We started yesterday.
And you haven't stopped since?
We haven't stopped.
You've gone through the night?
Through the night.
The floodwaters so high, making it difficult for drivers to see where the roadways start or end.
She thought that was her right turn, and it was the wrong turn.
The driver of this car plunging into this canal after thinking she was entering a parking lot. The northeastern part of Miami-Dade County, one of the hardest hit areas. More than 20 inches of rain falling in less than 2 days.
There's a lot of families here.
Can't get in or out.
ABC News correspondent Victor Kendo joins me live now from Miami. Victor, what's it like there right now?
Well, Diane, we are getting a much-needed break from the rain right now, but we know it is not going to last long. We're in North Miami, which got the bulk of the rain for Miami-Dade County. This street, it is inundated. It's been underwater for days now, and residents tell me that it has receded just a little bit, but clearly the drainage system is overwhelmed. We also know that on this block, floodwaters did pour inside of people's homes. We met someone, resident here, who hasn't left his home in 3 days now. Diane?
Wow. And Victor, South Florida is no stranger to powerful storms and flooding. How does this compare to some of the other storms they've seen, and how prepared are residents and authorities for what's coming?
Well, I think right now people just need to remember, be careful when you're driving. If you just look down the block here, there are at least a dozen stalled out vehicles. At this point, people should really know, don't drive through that standing water. And for residents in these hard-hit areas here in North Miami, Hollandale Beach, Aventura, they are tired, they are frustrated, and the warning from authorities, from officials, they're saying don't be deceived by the pockets of sunshine that you get. There's more rain on the way. Diane?
Good to know. Not good news, but a good warning for them to keep everybody safe.
Nearly 100 million Americans across the country are dealing with dangerous conditions today from this big heat wave we're seeing. The National Weather Service says temperatures will be 100 degrees in a lot of places. Washington, D.C.'s subway system had to restrict trains above ground, worried that the heat might warp the tracks. And as a precaution, Washington, D.C.'s fire department is deploying extra ambulances today.
Well, D.C. averages 500 to 600 calls in a 24-hour period routinely. In the heat, they generally spike. We go above 600. It's not unusual to go above 600.
From New York to South Bend, Indiana to Washington, D.C., officials are urging people to seek out water parks, splash pads, or indoor cooling centers.
Weather whiplash for millions of Americans as Alberto, the first named storm of the hurricane season, made landfall in neighboring Mexico. Meanwhile, dangerous heat tightens its grip across 16 states, stretching from the Midwest to the Northeast. CBN's Wendy Griffith is here with more on the extreme weather. Wendy.
That's right, John. Alberto, now a tropical depression, made landfall overnight, leading to the deaths of at least 3 people. Government forecasters predict this to be an above-average hurricane season. In another potential extreme, more than 70 million people under heat alerts on this first official day of summer.
Alberto hit as a tropical storm, bringing with it strong winds, heavy rains, and dangerous storm surge. Areas along the Texas Gulf Coast feeling the impact, with neighborhoods in Surfside flooded, streets in Galveston underwater, and a 4-foot storm surge greeted Corpus Christi.
The water's up to the dunes right now, so it's definitely not safe to be out on the beaches currently.
While parts of the Gulf Coast are saturated, hot, dry conditions are helping to fuel wildfires in the west. Some 17 large fires continue to burn from California to New Mexico. The South Lake and Salt fires in New Mexico have destroyed more than 1,400 structures. Evacuation orders are in effect.
I was afraid. I saw how fast that fire had hit my area, and there was no way I was going to take a chance. So we left.
Meanwhile, the Midwest and Northeast remain in the grips of a dangerous heat wave. Temperatures in the upper 90s, heat indices into the triple digits in some places. In New York and elsewhere, people flocking to beaches and lakes to try and beat the heat. Kids at this day camp in Pennsylvania using the shade and the pool to stay cool.
Just trying to keep them out of the sun a lot and superly hydrated.
The health department in Philadelphia declaring a health heat emergency until Saturday.
Makes me hot just looking at it. High temperatures expected to continue at possible record levels in the Northeast and parts of the Ohio Valley. As for those fires in the West, some good news as gusty winds are easing up, but no relief yet.
turn to dramatic new images out of South Florida. Catastrophic flooding triggering a state of emergency with more heavy rain hitting tonight, while in the west, wildfires erupting in the dangerous heat. We begin with Marissa Parra in the storm zone.
Neighborhoods in South Florida underwater.
You need a ride? You sure?
Rescue crews called to help stranded neighbors.
We have about 6 inches of water inside the house.
The aftermath of a deluge of record-breaking rain slamming the Sunshine State. Now, 2 deaths reported after a car lost control on wet roads in Collier County.
This is how high the water was yesterday.
Exactly.
From Florida's west coast.
Because it's flooded everywhere.
To North Miami.
I got nowhere to go, so I'm like, I'm lost for words.
Miami-Dade and 4 other counties under a state of emergency as millions face flood risk across the state.
And we are working around the clock to protect our residents and our businesses.
The storm system creating a swath of travel nightmares. Hundreds of flights delayed or canceled. Overnight, rising waters temporarily shutting down part of I-95.
Street after street in South Florida looks exactly like this one. Cars stalled out in the middle, homes flooded, leaving neighbors wondering what happens next.
Abandoned vehicles littering roads and parking lots as parts of southern Florida saw 10 to 20 inches of rainfall over 2 days, comparable to hurricane totals. The ground now saturated and vulnerable.
What are you going to do?
What I'm going to do, I have no choice. Stay here or go to the hotel.
And even more rain in the forecast for a waterlogged Florida. Marissa Parra, NBC News, North Miami.
I'm Liz Kreutz in Arizona, where firefighters have been battling a destructive wildfire north of Phoenix.
And then we're just going to have it, watch it, and making sure it's not hopping the road like it did.
The Rose Fire igniting late afternoon Wednesday outside the town of Wickenburg, quickly spreading across more than 160 acres, jumping Highway 60.
This major highway is now closed in both directions, and you can see fire crews there in the helicopter doing a water drop to try to put out these flames.
The fire fueled by strong winds and the dry, scorching heat, destroying 6 homes and forcing residents to evacuate.
We had a neighbor call us and say, "Did you know you're about to be evacuated?"
Paul Bjorklund says the flames were just a couple miles from his house.
And we walked out and looked and saw big plumes of smoke, and we decided to head for the hills.
And Lester, officials say this fire was human-caused. Highway 60, where we are, has now reopened. Evacuations have been lifted, but there is still no containment on this fire tonight, with firefighters working by hand through